Alright, this is a hardware comparison between the Samsung Tab 10.1, the Motorola Xoom, and the Ipad2. First, as you can see, there is a definite difference between the thickness. If we can get a close-up right there, you'll see that obviously the Samsung is much thinner than the Xoom, but as we compare it, if we were to compare it next to the iPad, you'll see that the thickness is very similar when it comes to those two devices. One of the other differences between the three devices is how they charge. If we look at the charging, the Samsung charges using a proprietary dongle for charging. It's a USB cord that plugs into a USB charging base. The Ipad2 uses something similar, iPad's or Apple's own proprietary dongle, which also connects via USB to a dongle or base. And then you have the Motorola Xoom, which has its own proprietary connector. It's not USB based, but one of the things I will tell you as I compare these three devices, the Motorola Xoom is the fastest when it comes to charging. Yes, it's a brick, it's a lot bigger, but it's the fastest. I can get a full charge close to within an hour. The Apple is slower, not as fast as the Xoom when it comes to charge, and I can tell you that the Galaxy Tab is far the slowest of all. It takes well over several hours, and not 2 hours, 4 or 5 hours before I can get a full charge on this device. So it takes a long time. The next thing let's look at is the actual controls. So the power button and the volume rockers. You also then have your headphone jack, and they're all located on the same side. On the iPad, you have your power on the top, and then you have your volume rocker on the side, and this is actually your switch for rotation. On the Motorola, you have your up and down volume controls here on the corner. You have the power button right here, oddly placed on the back of the device, and then you have your audio jack here. Okay. If we look at speaker placement, I'd say that the Samsung is probably the best when it comes to speaker placement. It has the speakers located one on this side, one on this side, so it's two. And the nice thing about it is that when you hold it, so if I were to hold it in this fashion, it's a little backwards, but if I were to hold it, I don't cover up the speakers. The speakers are pretty much available on both sides. I'm not covering it up, I'm holding it this way. If I have it on my lap, and I'm, let's say reading a book like this, even though I'm covering the bottom one, if it's on my lap, the top one is still available, so I can still hear clear sound if I'm listening to an audiobook or listening to music. The iPad, however, only has one speaker, and the speaker's on the back right here. And depending on how you hold it, if you're holding it with one hand, for example, you're covering it up. And I know Steve Jobs would probably say, well, then don't hold it that way. Let's just hold it the other way because I'm holding it wrong. But it does cover up that speaker. If you have it on your lap, you're also going to cover up the speaker. And I know Apple's comment is it's not supposed to be on your lap. But that's another thing to consider when it comes to speaker. The Motorola Xoom is probably the worst when it comes to the three. It has the speakers in the back. Bad thing about that is that if you have this rested on your lap, you're going to basically cover up the speakers. If you have it laying down on a surface, you're going to cover up the speakers. So your speakers are pretty much covered. It's probably the poorest in design. Alright, camera placement on the Samsung is on the top, and then you have your little ambient sensor for light. You have on the back, you have your flash, and you have your camera. So again, the device is meant to be held like this for when you're taking pictures, even though you can rotate it, but that seems to be the most natural way. On the iPad, it's located at the very top, even though you can rotate it and use the camera to take pictures of yourself this way. And also the one right here is located in the back, not in the center, but on this back corner. The Motorola has its camera here on the top. And then it has on the back, it too has its camera and its double LED flash. So this one actually has two, as opposed to the Samsung, which only has one. I guess it comes in handy if you're working in a dark situation. Alright, so let's, there's a lot of comparisons between the screen quality. Apple always does a phenomenal job when it comes to the graphics on all their devices. So if you think about the Mac, and you think about compare it to PCs, the quality of the screens and the graphic quality is superb. However, this is an area where I have to say that there's some differences. Now, keep in mind, I do have screen protectors on these devices, and it's probably hard for it to come out on the video. But I'd like you to look at, this is a picture that I took when I was on vacation in Puerto Rico of the Moro. And if you take a look at this picture, this is the Samsung Galaxy Tab. So we'll go ahead and show it. Compare that to the iPad, and I'll try to bring them up both at the same time. Let me bring that up again. You'll notice that the colors are richer on the Samsung Galaxy Tab than they are on the iPad. They're both very clear, but the blues are bluer, the greens are greener. The colors just pop out more on the Galaxy Tab. If I were to compare that same picture to the Motorola Xoom, again, the picture is very clear. Let's move this over here a little bit. But the colors are washed out. So good detail, not a problem with detail, but the colors are definitely washed out if you compare the two. If we were to look at, let's take a closer look so you can look at the graphic quality here. And I were to zoom this in, I'll do this a little upside down. You'll notice, again, very vivid colors, good quality. And if we compare that to the iPad now, again, good quality, but if we compare again the blues of the water, let's see if we can get that like that. You'll notice that, again, the blues are bluer. They don't seem as dull as you compare it to the actual iPad. And again, both devices are at full screen brightness. Comparing it to the third device, which is the Motorola Xoom, we'll do the same zooming that we had there so we can get a similar picture. You notice how this picture is, it's a nice picture, but it's still washed out. The blues don't look as blue, and the rest of the colors are kind of pale in comparison. So this is a comparison of these three devices, the Motorola Xoom, the Samsung Galaxy Tab 10.1, and the Ipad 2 when it comes to graphic quality. I find that the Samsung is brighter than the Ipad 2. Again, I don't have any measuring equipment to say that, but just this is my observation as a casual user without really any scientific type measurement to prove it. But graphic quality is, I think, superior on the Samsung Galaxy Tab. The last thing I'll point out is that the Galaxy Tab does not have any expansion. So there are no expansion slots anywhere for an SD card or a mini SD or micro SD. They do have an adapter that you can connect to the bottom where you have that proprietary dongle that could allow you to house an SD card, but there's nothing that is built into the device. The same thing is true for the iPad. The only device that has expansion is the Motorola Xoom, and it's via this little slot right here. There's a little area right here where you can put a micro SD. The problem with it is that this device does not support it as of yet, and there's no word from Motorola as to when and if they'll ever support it. So while it has the ability to support expansion, Motorola is really leaving people in the dark when it comes to the support of any type of micro SD. So if you're looking for expansion and you think you're getting it when you buy the Motorola, the hardware has it, the software isn't there, and who knows if it will ever be there by the time there's going to be another device coming out. So from an expansion perspective, for all three devices, I'd say they're all equal, even though this one has the potential to do more. Thanks for watching the review.